Imagine a world where every gust of wind carries more than just air, where the flicker of fire in a dark cave hides a presence watching back, where rivers are not just flowing water but living guardians that remember what we have forgotten. Across cultures and centuries, human beings have whispered about such forces. Not gods, not demons, but something in between. The ancients called them elemental spirits. Are they real entities, woven into the fabric of nature? Or are they archetypes, shaped by the human mind to explain what we do not understand? Picture a medieval alchemist's chamber, stacks of manuscripts, candles burning low. In the margins of a leather-bound book, sketches of strange beings, airy sylphs, fiery salamanders, earthy gnomes, watery undines. These figures were not drawn for fantasy novels. They were documented as serious knowledge guarded in secret circles, hidden from ordinary eyes. But why? What truth about elemental spirits was so dangerous, it had to remain hidden? The concept of elemental spirits is far older than the word itself. Long before the alchemists of Europe gave them names, indigenous traditions across the world spoke of invisible companions woven into land, water, air, and flame. In the mountains of Japan, villagers told stories of kami, divine presences that dwell in rivers, trees, stones, and storms. In Celtic traditions, Druids honored nature not as background scenery, but as a living presence, animated by spirits. In ancient Greece, philosophers like Empedocles argued that the entire world is built from four roots: earth, air, fire, and water. Later thinkers, blending philosophy with mysticism, began to see these roots as doorways to hidden beings. But what exactly were these beings? By the Renaissance, occult scholars tried to give them form. The Swiss physician and alchemist Paracelsus in the 16th century gave us the classification most still recognized today: gnomes for earth, undines for water, sylphs for air, salamanders for fire. These were not playful fairies or childlike sprites. They were considered intelligent presences, each tied to the laws of their element. A gnome was said to move through stone as easily as we walk through grass. A salamander lived in flame as naturally as we breathe air. Picture a medieval manuscript describing a salamander, a small, lizard-like figure glowing in the red embers of a forge. Not a symbol, not a metaphor, a literal inhabitant of fire. Why did Paracelsus, a respected physician, risk ridicule by writing about them? Because for him, and for many of his time, the spiritual world was not separate from the physical. To understand medicine, one had to understand both body and spirit, and the elemental beings were considered mediators of natural forces, invisible custodians of health, weather, and even fate. But Paracelsus also warned, these beings are not friends of humankind. They exist in their own order, indifferent to us, yet capable of interaction when boundaries are crossed. This idea, that invisible intelligences share our world, is echoed in many places. Think of the jinn in Islamic tradition, beings of smokeless fire who live parallel lives unseen by humans. Or the Yullah in Tibetan belief, mountain spirits that must be respected with offerings, lest they bring illness or disaster. Even the Bible, in its poetic way, hints at spirits of wind and flame serving higher powers. So what was it about the elemental idea that made it both universal and secretive? Perhaps because acknowledging them forced humanity to confront an uncomfortable possibility, that we are not the only conscious tenants of this earth. Across cultures, whispers of elemental beings echo with uncanny similarity. Separated by oceans, by languages, by centuries, yet the descriptions align. Why? Picture a dense European forest in the Middle Ages. Hunters swear that gnomes dwell beneath the roots of ancient oaks, surfacing only at night. They describe short, weathered figures with faces carved like stone, guardians of hidden treasures buried deep in the earth. Now shift the scene to the highlands of the Andes. Here, villagers speak of opus, mountain spirits with moods as unpredictable as storms. When respected, the opus protect the community with fertile fields and steady weather. When angered, they unleash avalanches or barren soil. Earthly presences, earthly consequences. Move again, this time to the riverbanks of West Africa. The Yoruba people tell of Oshun, a water spirit who embodies love and fertility. But like the undines of Paracelsus, Oshun demands respect. Ignore her, and the river that nurtures life could just as easily sweep it away. The common thread? Elemental spirits are never neutral. They are powerful, capricious, and demand recognition. The alchemical tradition. In Europe, alchemists viewed elemental beings not just as folklore, but as part of natural science. They believed these entities embodied the forces that shape reality. To study them was to unlock the secrets of transformation. An alchemist might describe the salamander not as a lizard, but as the living essence of fire itself, the spark behind every forge, the heat that cooks our food, the flame that both creates and destroys. To call on salamanders was to call on raw power. And what of the airy sylphs? They were envisioned as tall, graceful figures, moving invisibly on the currents of wind. They were linked to inspiration, thought, and the unseen breath of life. Poets sometimes spoke of being visited by the wind, perhaps not just a metaphor. Undines tied to rivers and oceans symbolized emotion, intuition, and the depths of memory. While gnomes, close to the soil, represented endurance, hidden knowledge, and the slow patience of stone. To the alchemists, these beings weren't simply mystical curiosities. They were the hidden anatomy of the world. Folklore and warnings. But alongside reverence came caution. Celtic tales speak of people lured into misty lakes by beautiful figures, undines who could bless or drown with a single embrace. In Eastern Europe, legends of fiery salamanders warned blacksmiths never to stare too long into the flames, lest they catch a glimpse of something that would haunt them forever. Even in modern times, rural communities still leave offerings, coins tossed into wells, food placed at the edge of forests. Not superstition, but negotiation, a quiet acknowledgement of unseen neighbors. Could these rituals be remnants of ancient contracts? Agreements between humans and elemental forces, ensuring balance between the visible and invisible? Esoteric interpretations. In secret societies of the Renaissance, elemental spirits were more than myths. They were considered initiatory symbols. Mystics believed that true spiritual mastery required not only knowing about the elements but making peace with their spirits. To pass through the trial of fire was not a metaphor. It meant confronting the salamander. To pass through the trial of water meant facing the undine in the depths of the unconscious. In this view, elemental beings were mirrors of human transformation. Master earth, and you gain stability. Master water, and you gain emotional wisdom. Master air, and your thoughts become clear. Master fire, and your spirit is ignited. But hidden in these teachings is a darker truth. Many mystics warned that elemental spirits were not always cooperative. They could resist, confuse, or even harm the unprepared. Approaching them without respect was like stepping into a storm unprotected. Modern echoes. Strange as it sounds, modern accounts continue to emerge. Hikers in the Carpathian Mountains reporting shadowy figures among rocks, vanishing into stone itself. Divers in deep lakes describing encounters with shapes that resemble humans, but with fluid, drifting movements, as if sculpted from water. Firefighters claiming to see figures in the heart of great blazes, standing untouched by the flames. Skeptics dismiss these as hallucinations born of exhaustion, fear, or imagination. But to those who study the continuity of myth, such reports cannot be ignored. They fit too neatly with descriptions handed down across centuries. And here lies the unsettling question. If these beings are not inventions of the mind, what are they? Some suggest they are natural intelligences. The consciousness of Earth itself, expressed in forms humans can perceive. Others argue they are projections of the collective unconscious, archetypes made visible when conditions are right. And a few propose they are ancient life forms, existing parallel to us, hidden in realms just beyond our senses. Whichever explanation you choose, one thing is clear. Humanity has always sensed it is not alone. Across every continent, in every age, the whispers remain the same. Earth, water, air, and fire, each alive, each guarded by unseen intelligences. Whether we call them gnomes, undines, sylphs, or salamanders, or by older names lost to time, their presence lingers like a shadow at the edge of human history. But here is the question that unsettles even the most skeptical. Why are these stories so consistent? Why do cultures with no contact describe the same beings, tied to the same elements, with the same warnings? Picture this. A forgotten manuscript in a monastery library, its pages brittle with age. It tells of rituals to summon sylphs, promising visions of the future carried on the wind. The text is crossed out by a cautious monk, who scribbled in the margin, "Too dangerous to attempt." Now imagine a remote village where elders still pour the first cup of rice wine onto the earth before drinking. Not tradition, they insist, but obligation, an offering to keep the balance. What are we protecting ourselves from? And more importantly, who are we in the eyes of these beings? Intruders? Partners? Or something much smaller? Temporary guests on a planet that belongs as much to them as to us? The truth is, no one can say for certain. Science looks for evidence and finds none. Mystics search for encounters and risk madness. And yet the stories persist, quietly passed down, generation after generation. Perhaps the elemental spirits do not want to be proven. Perhaps they prefer to remain at the edge of perception, shaping the world in silence. The rivers still flow, the winds still move, the earth still trembles, the fire still burns. And somewhere, unseen, perhaps the spirits are still watching. So the mystery remains, not of whether they exist, but of why they reveal themselves only in glimpses. And the final question that lingers as the screen fades to black. If the elemental spirits are real, what will happen the day they decide we have forgotten them for too long?